I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Moore.
Present.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Present.
Councilman Iacelli.
Here.
Councilman Bell.
Present.
Councilman Piedmont.
Present.
All right, great. Thanks for coming, everyone. We're going to start the meeting today with a report on the Adopt a Pond program. And we've got Bob Moser, the Executive Director for the Citizen Science Learning Center with us. Why don't you come on up and introduce your the people that are here with you?
Sure. Again, my name is Bob Moser. I think we've all spoken somewhere along the line. I have with me Sharon Frost. She's on our board, and she brings her grant writing expertise to our organization. We have Chris DeVivo, who's retired. He's an environmental chemist by education at Oneonta. We both went there at different times, but he retired from the pharmaceutical industry as a QA/QC chemist. So he's retired and he jumped on board with us to help with how we process our samples.
Okay, if you want to both come up, you're welcome to join us.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Bob, for coming. I
Thanks for
invited you here
asking.
today. I appreciate you all taking the time out to do this work. When I was a graduate student at SUNY Stony Brook, I actually did some of this with ponds. I believe baseline data is important, and I know that's what you all are trying to do, is to establish baseline data for our ponds for future use. So, with that.
I would like to tell you thank you for the past history. You're working very good with the trustees, Southampton Town trustees, over the years.
You're welcome.
Thank you for doing that.
I try to get involved in community issues. Ever since I moved to the town of Southampton in the early '90s, I participated and got involved with this Spion-Remsenburg Civic Association, of which I'm still co-president of that. And for many years, starting in the early 2000, I was involved with the CAC West, and at one point in time, co-chair over several administrations there. So, I like to contribute to my community.
So you have a strong relationship with the Southampton Town trustees. The ponds are the jurisdiction of our trustees, and you went to their board first before here. Do you want to give a little history on that?
Well, basically, I did a similar presentation to them. They needed to hear, what it was in detail, what we were doing, and so I did a similar presentation and made some modifications to this, to their presentation, to that presentation, and it was well received.
Was it in January? It's dated January. Okay. No, it's all right.
Something.
Yeah.
I didn't have my editor looking at this.
No, that's okay. It's
And something happened along the way here. Now I'm not in the presentation mode, so I'm not sure if somehow I'm out of presentation.
Is Janice
mode. I don't know how
Janice,
to-
can you just make it full screen?
Slideshow
Do you see where it says
slideshow?
from beginning,
view from beginning?
top
right.
left.
Yeah.
View?
No, top left. It says from beginning.
Yeah,
You
on the
see
ribbon, down low.
Is it at
Yeah,
the
to the
bottom
left,
of the
left,
little
left, and up?
start?
Nope.
No.
One more up to the left
Oh, sorry.
from beginning.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, it's just- okay, so
I think
There you go. Oh,
It's all right, you're just on slide 2.
And so
You're good.
this spring, the trustees did send a letter of support.
he's good. He's got it.
You good?
we're good.
The
Thank you,
trustees
Dennis.
did send a letter of support for this program because it's their jurisdiction.
Right.
So with that,
Okay, so I've attached a copy of their resolution as well as the letter that they sent to you guys all, but you have a copy of it. I don't know if it's necessary to read it to you guys.
No, it's
No.
You're all on board?
you
Okay.
read it.
And then the last page is just sort of a summary, a single page bullet item of what we're gonna cover here. So why are we here? You gotta forgive me. I'm a teacher. I retired from 16 years of trying to teach science to 12-year-olds. You want to
Thank
talk
you.
about a challenge? At the William Floyd Middle School, just around the
I
corner
was gonna
from
say,
me,
that's
Tommy
where I know
John.
you from, is the educational reform stuff that we all went through, so.
But then before that, 25 or so years, I worked as an environmental geologist doing Superfund investigations, investigating and cleaning up Superfund sites. So if at any point in time you guys are saying, we know all this, just move along, get to the point, I'd be okay with that. But why are we here? Southampton, we're stewards of 25,000 acres of surface water, bottomlands, and 200 freshwater bodies in the town of Southampton alone. And I got that from my buddy Ross Baldwin upstairs, the GIS. Freshwater ponds are all groundwater discharge points. So as a hydrogeologist, groundwater is discharging to these ponds all the way around it, and then it drains out at the spillway. They're the headwaters of all our marine embayments and the ocean. So what happens in these ponds is going to affect our embayments and our wonderful ocean. Every one of us has a right to access and utilize these valuable resources. And what I discovered, I started poking around when I retired from teaching in 2019. I started to realize that there just doesn't seem to be there's a communication gap going on between the environmental agencies and the public regarding these harmful algal blooms. It's more and more becoming noticeable, and I'm getting notices from, I think it's from Suffolk County these days, about when there is a harmful algal bloom that occurs in the county. And I would like to fill that gap, and I've been involved with the DEC, speaking with the DEC and what their position is. So once again, we have the town trustee support, but we need the town board. Again, all of this is to help all of us do what we do best, so that we can preserve these natural resources for future generations. So who are we? Well, I started this thing going out and sampling ponds. I had hooked up with Chris Gobler. I've known him for years. And he told me that he has a grant where he can take samples from citizen scientists, whoever, will bring a sample to him, and he'll run an analysis for HABs. And obviously Lake Agawam is a very high profile lake and freshwater pond here in the town, and it's got a lot of publicity and a lot of support, money being poured into it to try to figure out why this is happening, why did it happen, and what are we going to do to fix it.
Wait, did you just say Professor Gobler has a grant that allows him to run the analysis for free for
Yes,
people?
at no cost.
Mhm.
Now, we understand that according to Chris, that money, basically that grant ends at the end of, it's not clear whether it's the end of this year, 2024, or the end of 2025. So that may no longer be available to us at
And
no cost.
what he tests for, is that what you all are testing? Or
Well,
like
again, he's the certified lab to do that analysis.
Mhm.
So we get the samples with some protocol and bring the samples to him using his lab bottles. He does that analysis. Beyond that, we're also collecting samples that go to a certified lab for nutrient analysis, because basically the verdict is that it's nitrogen and possibly phosphorus that are causing the blooms to happen, in addition to the right climate, the right temperature conditions. All right, so I hooked up with Chris, and I said, well, I look at my map, I think about my community. So there's basically 5 ponds along Montauk Highway from Eastport to Quogue. I'm doing this out of my own pocket, pro bono. That was my sort of area that I figured, let me just start doing this. Chris is going to do the analysis, let me start doing this. Try to get some other people involved. So I had a conversation back then with the trustees, and that goes back to Eric Schultz. And basically, Eric had said, "Hey, Bob, could you add Wildwood? That's a jewel for the town of Southampton." And I said, "All right, that's kind of a loop, so I'll pick up samples from there too." So that's what I did back in 2020, 21. I started collecting the samples, and over the period of time now, I started to think, well, let me give this a name. So I call it Adopt a Pond, trying to get other people, to participate.
You mean like the Adopt a Highway? You
Yeah.
try to get
Mhm.
people
Yeah,
to.
exactly. The same concept. Okay. So now I didn't really want to start my own business at my age, but it appeared that the only way I was really going to be able to formalize this and ask for grant money would be to start a corporation and turn it into a 501c3. So as of this year, the paperwork came through from the IRS that we're officially a 501c3. So donations are tax deductible. And the concept here is not only providing, a service for understanding our natural environment and doing environmental investigations, but I don't need to know how to do this, but there's lots of kids, and there's lots of opportunity, again, as a teacher, lots of opportunity for students to be involved in this kind of stuff. And that's what I'm passionate about, whether it's kids in school or it's old people, whatever, whoever's willing to listen. All right. We're a member of the New York State Federation of Lakes and Ponds. You may have heard of NISFOLA, and it has a huge presence upstate New York, but not so much down here. Our freshwater ponds are really not a huge draw for people. It's mainly our marine environment that brings people here and has people living here. Upstate New York is a different story. They rely on their freshwater ponds for drinking water. So it's a whole different mindset. All right, so our executive board consists of 3 environmental scientists. Myself as a geologist, you all know Jock Comer, he's the bio guy, another educator, and chemistry, which is Chris, brings the chemistry side. Although I have, all my career I was out sampling groundwater samples from monitoring wells and having to deal with contract labs and detection limits and QA/QC and all that stuff. So I have that background as well. And then a good friend of mine, Steve Sosek, he lives upstate New York. He's in Rochester. He's a chemical engineer. He owned his own business doing process controls for manufacturing. We have a grant writer, Sharon. A local real estate professional, that's Deirdre DeVito. And a business management consultant, and that is Larissa Tapchuk. She lives on Little Fresh Pond. So I just recently met her, and she seemed very interested in participating in what we're doing and helping us sort of with her background. I also have, and he should be coming, but Dr. John Gross, who is a professor from Farmingdale, and I'm involved with Farmingdale as an adjunct also, and we have a program with Farmingdale where we have some interns helping us with the sampling. And this is the second summer where we have some interns coming.
Is Little Fresh Pond going to be included in your studies?
Little Fresh Pond
At this
is
point.
part of CSLAP, which that's a whole separate program
Okay.
that the state has, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So, as I said before, we're partnered with Chris Gobler. He does the HABs analysis. The Upstate Freshwater Institute labs, they are, I believe they're also a nonprofit. They do the nutrient analysis for phosphorus and nitrogen compounds. The reason why I'm using them is because they do the lab work for the state DEC's CSLAP program, which is a citizen science statewide program, and people, Little Fresh Pond, Big Fresh Pond, Long Pond on the Greenbelt, in the town of Southampton are 3 ponds that are in that program. Out of 200, I was surprised that there were only 3. that were actively involved with monitoring the water quality of the ponds.
Me too.
And again, Farmingdale State College for the student interns. But Tommy John, to address a question you had, I spoke to the lab yesterday, and they do municipal work.
Good.
Okay. They mentioned a few names of different towns and cities that they do work for. So if you need the names of those,
In addition to the
communities,
New York State DEC.
in addition to
Okay.
the DEC. Okay, so what have we been doing? Monitoring freshwater ponds for toxic blue-green algae, also known as HABs, when they bloom, when they take over, and then also characterizing the environmental conditions that cause them. We want to try to build, and I've reached out to all of the leaders of the lake and pond associations, including Little Fresh, Big Fresh, Long Pond, and also there's a fresh pond on Shelter Island. There's a separate organization there that's part of the CSLAP. So on the east end, there's only 4 lakes and ponds that are part of the state's CSLAP program. And in speaking to each one of them, I realized that they had complaints. They had complaints about it took them a year to get a report back from all the sampling they had done during that past year. So, and when they get the report, they're having trouble. Hello, John. This is Dr. John Gross from Farmingdale.
Hi,
Doc.
would you like to join us at the table? Grab a chair.
Take this chair,
Yeah.
Tommy John.
So we've started conversations about how can we best communicate our experiences and expertise, maybe even sharing some equipment. So that's the idea, is to try to bring us all together. And again, with our background, a lot of times the people that are involved here they don't have the science backgrounds that we have, that we bring to the table. So we're hoping that we can provide them some degree of professional expertise in understanding what's happening with their ponds. We want to try to piggyback on the existing DEC program for monitoring HABs, meaning the CSLAP program. CSLAP is not as much focused on HABs as they are about characterizing the ponds. They have a sampling protocol, sampling season. They only look at samples during the summer. They don't care about anything in the off seasons. As an environmental scientist, I think you're missing out on a lot of things, and I'll show you why as we go. But we want
What's that
to
stand for? CSLAP?
Citizens Statewide Lake and Pond Program. All right. And as I said, there's only 3 freshwater
there it is.
ponds in. I should have known.
You did, you got it.
All right. And so it's Citizens Statewide Lake Assessment Program. I just they did a training on Little Fresh Pond a couple of weeks ago. I participated in that just so I could see their protocols and matched our protocols to sampling.
Was
as
that their
best we
choice
could.
to only do 3 of our freshwater ponds?
Nope.
It's our choice.
But when I said to them, "Oh, I'm doing 6 ponds on the western side of the town of Southampton," they were like, "Ooh." And it's not free. It's depending on your sampling frequency. It's either $300 or $600, depending on how often you want to collect your samples, with some guidance from them. So they're at capacity. They are struggling to try to meet the demands of people who want to join. But you have to ask them. And going back to the HAB stuff, the DEC is backing away from actually using laboratory analysis to analyze for HABs. The DEC is basically going to rely on citizen scientists, volunteers, to take a picture of what they think is a bloom. Send it to the DEC using a form, so location is captured, so all this information is being captured in a GIS database, It gets uploaded to the state. Somebody at the state looks at it and says, looks like a harmful algal bloom. Close your pond.
What's the time frame? Could be weeks.
Well, the state posts it as soon as they're notified. So, for example, if I bring a sample of Gobler and he gets a hit, it says you've got a hab, he has to report that to the state. So he's obligated, and even a lab or whoever is hiring the lab is obligated to report that to the state. Goes up on the state's website. Okay, that's nice. But if you don't know that the state has a website to look for this, then you wouldn't know.
But what is the timeline on that? Do you approximately?
I would say it would be the same day. Within the same day.
How long is the analysis on Gobler's
so
side?
for the Habs, he will know within the day.
That it's sent.
In fact, if we bring samples to him and we say, Chris, he's not there, but
Right.
we say, look, this looked bad. Can you just do this right away? They could literally take the sample and analyze it, and they would tell you right then and there
So within a
whether they
24-hour
exceeded
period.
a level. Okay. So now they're relying on visual. That's my understanding. They're backing away from doing any actual lab analysis. They feel that if it looks bad, it is bad. Stay out of the water. It's up to you whether you want to go in the water or not.
I mean, it's possible for that whole lake, you don't get the correct sample and you don't find it. So
Right. You're right.
They are
And
outside of caution.
These are interesting critters. Not all of them are toxic, and even the ones that are toxic can be toxic, but they aren't always toxic, even though it's this, the organism.
Especially if people like eat fish out of it or eat the crabs out of it.
Yeah, and the trustees stock some of the ponds.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether the people, I've stopped and chatted with some of the people fishing, and everyone that I've spoken to throws the fish back. They don't keep them. They don't want to eat them. But we have another population
Yeah, there's one or two.
that might be, relying on that for food. And I don't know if there's really any evidence that eating a fish coming from a pond with a harmful algal bloom is a concern, but I certainly wouldn't eat it. Okay. Well, why should we do this? Okay, so there's a whole bunch of things. Biodiversity conservation, habitat restoration, educational opportunities, water quality improvements, recreation and aesthetics, community engagement, scientific research, legal protections, economic benefits, and property values. And again, one of the big ones is property values. If you live on one of these ponds and it turns into a Lake Agawam, somebody needs to step up to the plate and protect that resource.
But what are you doing with your data? Are you saying, this looks like it's going in a bad direction, we need to do something? Is that part of the plan, or is it just collection data at this point?
Well, we're accumulating, in summary, we haven't had any HABs of the 7 ponds that we're measuring. So we've not documented any HABs at all. We've seen concentrations in 2 of the ponds go up.
Have you tabulated some of this data?
Of course. Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I'm a
just
GIS person as well.
Of course.
And John that's one of the courses he teaches. And so we are working with the Esri platform, the GIS, ArcGIS platform, and all of that's being stored in a database that we can analyze.
And
Well,
this will be
I-
public data, right? I mean, that's part of the.
I mean, as far
I
as
kind of
far as
know what you're
HABs,
going. I'll
as-
let you
as
finish your
far as HABs are
presentation.
concerned, Chris Dobler, that information is public,
Of course.
okay?
Well, the only reason why I'm asking that is just based piggybacking off of some of the supervisor's questions, so that if the board has knowledge of what you're finding, what's going on in some of these ponds for the town board's knowledge, so we know, where things are going in that regard. Is that something that you would be able to provide?
Sure.
Just to give you an example, if you
Sure.
had Long Island Science Center here, they have a website. They have all of their data on the website. They actually do a bunch of sampling in Wildwood Lake. So I don't know if, you're both paying to sample Wildwood Lake. I don't know why you wouldn't work together on that, because they have years of data of Wildwood Lake on their website. So
They only started sampling Wildwood Lake when I did.
Well, I'm just saying you're both doing it, so you're both paying to do it. So it's kind of
Is it current data?
it's on their website. Yes, you can go on their website today.
They're
and look at all the data.
sampling at the swimming area for Wildwood. So I'm sampling at the outlet of Wildwood, where all of the water from Wildwood discharges. So they're sampling across. That's a 65 or 67
Pretty big.
acres, big, right? So, yeah, your sampling location is critical, and I've chosen for a bunch of reasons. Scientifically, I think that's a good place to get a composite sample. But also it's accessibility. Some of the ponds are I can't get them, and crossing private property.
So I'm hearing two different samplings. One is for harmful algal blooms that you send over to Gobler's lab, and they do this for free. What you're interested in is to actually see the bio makeup or the chemical makeup of the water column
Right.
in these ponds to get baseline data now before there's a
Right.
possible before there's an issue, so that we have it in the future,
Right.
whether it's 5 years, 20 years. If there's an issue, someone can go back and another scientist can go back and say, okay, this is what it was like in 2024. Now it's not like that. What's changed, right? So
Correct.
this is
Yes.
kind of
Yeah.
okay. I don't know if Citizen Science Center is doing that kind of nutrient analysis at Wildwood, but so I'm staying with your group right now on these 7 ponds. Okay.
And help me out anytime you want, and you're doing that, and I appreciate it. If I'm going off in a direction and not answering your question, just bring me back.
I have a question.
Okay. All right, Bill.
You asked for it.
I know you might not know the answer. On Wildwood Lake, Wildwood Lake, what is the water excellent? How often? If it,
I
anyone
don't-
figure that?
Okay,
Yeah.
these are all things that I'd love to do. Tommy
Yeah.
John, I found out, had done as part of a science project when he was in school, had
Graduate
mapped
school.
graduate school. I didn't whatever. Had mapped the bottom of Little Fresh Pond,
Mhm.
and it's something that we'd love to do with the students, but it's a matter of who's going to pay for it. How do we fund something like that? So we do have access to some students, and John and I were just talking about possibly doing East Pond over in Eastport because it's small, it's very accessible, and we can get out with kayaks and we can start, measuring depths to bottom and plotting and figuring out how, what the bottom contours look like. So there's a lot of different things, Bill, we could
Yeah,
do, and measuring the outflow and the exchange rate of these ponds would be
That's really
a whole
important.
project. Now, again, we're doing 7 ponds. Here they are: West Pond, East Pond, Mill Pond, in Spionk, just to differentiate from all the mill ponds around the town. Beaver Dam Pond in West Hampton, Old Ice Pond Quag, and Wildwood Lake in Northampton. And last fall, we picked up Silverbrook Pond because the neighbors there, Barbara Swislovsky, was having issues, and the town
Good.
trustees had been involved in the past.
That was actually
So-
connected to the dam, the culvert that goes under the dam, and there's a fish run there. I'm curious to know if we can get a culvert to Silverbrook Pond from that fish run. But that's for future conversation.
Okay.
Just put that on your radar.
All right, so these are the 7 that we're currently doing. In Silverbrook, we just started in the fall. All of them, with the exception of Wildwood, are man-made features, human-made features, to be politically correct, person-made. They are
What did you say? They're
impoundments,
all
Yep.
man-made except Wildwood?
except Wildwood. Wildwood is a natural geologic feature. It's right in the middle of the moraine, and it's a kettle hole. It's
Second biggest one on Long Island.
and it's suspected
Yeah.
spam, no less. So Wildwood is a big pond. It's around 50 feet deep at its deepest point. But all the others are all human-made structures. There's a dam, an impoundment, and some of these, I did some research on the history of the ponds that go back to the 1700s. Settlers came and they said, ooh, there's some water here, let's
Yeah.
dam it up.
Eventually, it was originally a stream, and they dammed it.
Yeah, it was tidal, right?
Yeah.
It was a tidal estuary, and they just put the dam up and backed up the fresh water behind it, created some head, and created a water wheel, and made a mill. So these are all, and they're fairly shallow, but now they've been freshwater ponds for, well, 200 years. All right, so what is our scope of work? We monitor weekly and for HABs at Chris Gobler's lab. We do seasonal analysis from, for the nitrogen and phosphorus compounds, meaning we try to get, if we get funding, and so far, the 8 rounds of samples that we've collected, we've managed through my campaigning in my local community and friends. I have friends in Florida that are sending money just to contribute to the cost of the lab analysis for the nutrients. And we've managed to do that over the last 3 years. And it's upwards of $5,000 now for the analysis. And we have an idea of how many samples we should collect, and couple that with the DEC's protocols. We think we should be getting between 8 and 10 samples per year for at least 2 years in order to get a good handle on the pond chemistry and how it changes over the seasons.
Well, I don't understand. So it says weekly monitoring.
For HABs. Okay, just for HABs. So every week we go out, start at the beginning of June. Every week we go out, we collect samples for HABs and bring them to Chris. Then, and we haven't done it this summer, the last time we sampled for nutrients was last May. So we want to do another sample set this summer, and as often during the summer as we can, maybe even monthly, but then go to, fall, winter, spring, sampling for nitrogen. And that, as I said, was the Upstate Freshwater Institute. So we basically, they send me the sample bottles, we ship them back to them, and they do the analysis.
And that costs money.
Costs money.
Whereas Gobler doesn't. But you're not sure if Gobler is going to have funding available?
Yeah. We're good this year. We're good through this summer.
Where did Chris get the funding from?
I think it's a DEC grant.
DEC.
Yeah. Okay, and again, we have students. This is our second season now with students from Farmingdale.
Would you be willing to open that up to other schools, Stony Brooks, or even high schools?
I'd be more than happy to.
Okay.
I keep trying.
Well,
But you know the world, I mean, you go to a high school and you want to get the high school kids involved and the teachers, and they're just like,
They've got
one more thing.
They've got AP tests to do. The regions.
So aren't the algal blooms related to the nitrogen? I don't want, isn't it? So
Yeah. That's that. And again, I think listening to Chris, I've been to his talks about the state of the bays. He says it's nitrate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you talk to the people upstate New York, and they go, it's phosphorus. It's really, if you don't have the phosphorus there, it ain't going to happen.
And this is why the baseline data is so critical. If something happens, we know what was happening in these ponds predating the event, so that we can compare the water during the event to the historic analysis of the water.
Yep.
Roughly, what percentage of the property owners around these contribute to your program?
Should be.
Just a handful.
I mean,
Because
it's
they
their
don't
investment.
even know what we're doing. I'm trying my best to get the word out. I have a Facebook group for my, West Hampton area. It's got 3,000 members in it, and it was there for community purposes. And I tell people what I'm doing, asking for help. And if you don't do Facebook, you wouldn't know. So I've done presentations at Quag Wildlife, presentations at the local library.
I'm just wondering if we couldn't send out outreach letters to property owners around these ponds.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, let's face it, if you can't use the water in front of your house, what's your house actually going to be worth?
And something I want to add to that too is that the notification situation, when the DEC is notified that there's a HAB, that information then gets transferred over to the Suffolk County Health Department. And speaking to the health department, they get their information once a week from the state. They get the information, and then they send somebody out to go post the pond at a public access point, right? Now, except for everywhere else except for Southampton and East Hampton, and Bill, you probably know this, that the Suffolk County Health Department communicates with the trustees, and I think it's James who goes out and puts the sign up on the pond. Well, if you live on the pond, you may never ever see that sign, and the sign never comes down.
It could be improved. How it's done.
So that's why I said before about gaps.
I'm still a
Go
little
ahead.
unclear.
All right.
If Dr. Gobler's checking weekly for the halves, isn't that necessarily a test for the nitrogen and phosphorus?
You have to analyze the water specifically for the nitrogen and the
different
phosphorus.
tests.
And he's not doing that already on his own for his own
No.
research?
And I've asked
They're
Chris-
checking the organisms.
I've asked Chris, could you do that for us? So we don't have to send it to upstate
Yeah,
New
yeah,
York.
yeah.
We're handing you, he said, I don't have the capacity. Whatever it is that he's got going on, research, students, whatever, he just doesn't have the capacity.
No, okay.
And again, there's a technical issue here, and I discovered it along the way. Not so much with the nitrogen, but with the phosphorus. I was originally using a lab here in Holbrook, local lab, and there's a certain detection limit that the labs can get down to. Well, the lab here locally could only get down to 500 parts per billion, and I was getting results non-detect for phosphorus. Well, that means it's above, they're not seeing anything below 500. So everything comes back non-detect. Why am I not seeing any phosphorus? So I discovered that this Upstate Freshwater Institute lab, because they're doing freshwater ponds and environmental samples, they can get down to 5 parts per billion. And the reason they can get down that low is because the state sets 20 parts per billion as a standard for a freshwater pond to be impaired. So the lab here wasn't even capable of getting down to that level. Now, I don't know whether Chris's lab can satisfy those detection limits, but Upstate Freshwater Institute can.
So you'd be testing for phosphorus and nitrogen.
Total phosphorus.
How about pH and dissolved oxygen?
We do that in the field.
Okay.
That's critical to do that at the time of sampling. So we have the instrumentation for doing that.
All variables. Okay.
All right. So just some pictures. This is us out sampling. This is actually Wildwood. We're set up in the back of my truck, doing the field parameters, putting the data on data sheets as well as into a digital form on our phones that's connected to the GIS system that John helped us with. Some of our equipment. Again, this has all been purchased through contributions, myself as well as other people. And we found out, here it is, we found out that there was a company that was making a field portable microscope. And we just tried it the other day, where we can take a sample of our water, put it on the stage, and with some I'm going to say this wrong, AI, not IA, AI software, it will scan the slide and tell you within minutes whether you have a HAB, based on comparing the images from our sample to this library of 50, $100,000, hundred thousands of images of cyanobacteria, which are the algae that are blooming, and we can find out in 3 minutes. So we're just testing it now. We don't have the software for it. We don't have the Bloom Optic software. It's $1,500, and that's an annual fee. And we don't right now see the point of actually buying that software until we really have a problem. And certainly if Chris isn't going to be doing the analysis, we can use this as a backup beyond just our own eyes.
How much did that cost?
This was $1,500.
And then the software is an annual
Another
1,500 fee.
Yep. Okay, so here's
What's the turnaround time for Dr. Gobler?
usually by the end of the day, if we drop samples off at 1 o'clock, many times I'm seeing I'm seeing the data coming back on a Google Sheet that we share. I see the data coming back by the end of the day.
Oh, great.
And again, we're not, since we have a good history now, this is
Mhm.
going into 4 years of doing the lab analysis, we sort of, we're not priority. If Agawam samples come in, they go to the top of the pile because they want to process that quickly. So the phone itself is the screen. So we're able to see what's on the slide, and then you run the AI software, and it'll tell you what you got. All right, so the results. So since the summer of 2021, no occurrences of HABs in any of the original 6 ponds or lakes. We added Silverbrook fall of 2023, and one of the reasons was that pond had a HAB documented by Gobler, and I still don't know who sent Gobler out there to do this, but they collected a sample and they did have a HAB. I think it was an August or September sample. So we're keeping an eye on it. Concentration, this was just another interesting thing that happened in 2022. We saw levels of blue-green algae, meaning harmful algae, that went up to 13 and 14 micrograms per liter, above their historic levels of less than 3 typically, and then they came back down again. So we never reached that 25 micrograms per liter threshold that says you got a bloom. As soon as you hit that 25, that's when Gobler has to report it to the state. And going back again to a question having to do with the procedure for analysis. So the sample comes into Gobler. He does this thing that can tell you in minutes, as soon as they process the sample, whether you have a HAB occurring. You've exceeded that 25 micrograms per liter. Then they give the sample to a microscopist. They look at the sample under a microscope to identify the specific individual organisms, the cyanobacteria, that can be toxic producing. Doesn't mean they are. It's just, hey, you've got these guys in here, and we've already said we've got to have. Let's shut down the pond. The next step, which is the third step, which can take up to 2 weeks, is they do a toxicity analysis. So they won't know for 2 weeks whether or not that bloom that happened is actually toxic. But again, got to be protective of the public.
Well, wait, so in 2022, it documented some,
We went up to 13 and 14. It's just saying, because we're monitoring and we're getting this weekly data, we can, cyanobacteria are there. They've been on this planet 303.5 billion years. So we saw an elevated level, but it didn't reach that threshold. So again, that's why you monitor.
It's
Know
in a
what's going
densely
on.
populated area as well. So I think it's a good one to look at.
Okay, there were 2 events of a green algae bloom at Old Ice Pond, one in October of 2022 and one in July 2023. I don't know if anybody was there for the meeting with Senator Gillibrand, but the bloom had occurred, and you're standing there in the conference room and you see this green slime all over the surface of the pond. It lasted for several weeks. It was about 3 weeks, and we think it was related to a really large storm event, like a 3-inch rainfall, and a lot of runoff coming right into the pond.
All people stuff. That's not very deep either.
No, that's I think it's only chest deep.
Yeah. So it heats up pretty quick.
4 of the 7 ponds could be characterized as impaired based on total phosphorus. So it's definitely, something's going on in some of these ponds with respect to phosphorus. And one of the things we noticed too with our nitrate concentrations, all of the ponds, and it's a little hard to see, but all of the ponds drop in nitrate concentrations during the summer, and they're the highest in the winter. And my hypothesis is that the pond being groundwater discharge, that loading of nitrogen is constantly feeding the pond throughout the year, but there's nothing to take it out. And as soon as the growing season starts, then they start using the nitrogen and the levels drop, but then they go back up again. And so, again,
Especially
another,
and also the decay of the step up root during the summertime,
Right.
decays during the winter.
okay? Outcomes, again, I can blow through this if you want to, resource for students, baseline of data for the future. We can characterize the health of the ponds. It's all good stuff. Future scope of work, we want to continue sampling for HABs, seasonal sampling for nutrient analysis, engage students, engage families. So how can you help? All right, here's why we're here. All right, so just for the lab fees, if I take a year and say if we're going to do 8 to 10 samples of a pond at $100 a sample, just budget purposes, it's for 7 ponds would be $7,000. That's just for the nutrients, because HABs are being covered under GOLA
For the year.
for 1 year. Okay. And again, we're thinking 2 years. If we have 2 years worth of data, we have a pretty good handle on the characteristics of the pond. And we can, like in the environmental business, you do your sampling like this. You establish, you characterize your environment, but then you back off on the frequency of your sampling. So you reduce the cost, reduce the frequency, because you don't need it as often.
And presumably, as the program grows and moves forward, you could do that with other ponds in the town, because you've established the characteristics. You don't
Right.
have to test it as much,
Look at others.
and until or if something happens, you don't necessarily have to go back to that pond. You could do it to other ponds, and we get a nice snapshot of all of our inland ponds and the characteristics. We have this right? Okay.
It's a great mission.
Yeah.
Okay. I threw in some numbers, for labor, the supplies, the equipment that we're buying, instrumentation in the field, the mileage. It's 60 miles from my house round trip to collect the samples and drop them at Goler and come back home again. And the Bloom Optics software is $1,500. So I'm throwing these numbers out at you guys just for budgeting purposes. I know you have what you have, and you don't have what you don't have, but we're here asking for some help. And hopefully you'll get something, a valid water quality database. Chris and I have done this professionally for a long time, certified in, it's not just coming from, cheesy little field things that you can buy online. We're using certified labs to get valid data, preventative management, need for mediation, connects federal, state, county, town, and environmental organizations to the public at large so they know what's going on, and to provide a resource for environmental education of our residents.
So exactly what are you looking for? What would be the total?
2850, 28,500.
Yeah, if you were in a position to fund us for a year for all of that.
We would have to go back and look.
But in the meanwhile,
But
the
you would need that
critical thing
annual
right
aid to
now,
continue.
the critical thing right now is covering the lab fees.
Yeah.
We're already two sample sets in for the year. We're planning to do another one, and so
And that's 7,000.
unless I go out and campaign again and ask the locals for more money, we can't go out and sample.
So
It's going to come out of my pocket. I'm putting in kind labor.
it sounds like it would be a better way to go if we were to support this financially, is to give a grant to your organization directly, and then you work with the Upstate Freshwater Institute labs, right? You have
However, again, I don't know how government would work, and
Mhm.
if you gave us a certain amount of money, and let's just say it's just for the lab fees, you could be the one that's contracting with the lab, and you would just be paying for the analysis as the invoices come in.
I'd rather see it in the resolution that we articulate the deliverables. In other words, what the town, what the people are going to get, with
Got it.
this small grant, and then you all can handle that. And at the end of the year, you give the results to our environmental office, trustees, Suffolk County Health Department, whoever, everybody.
It's easier
Right.
for us.
And
Okay,
so
yeah,
that way you can do it.
Whatever is easiest for you
Um,
guys.
You know, I know that we have 5,000 encumbered somewhere. I'd like to do the 7,000 for you, but I don't know how the board feels about that.
I'd rather not discuss this.
I'm sorry.
We just,
We have other
gathering
requests as
the
well, so we would
information.
have to have an internal discussion.
Yeah, next second.
And this is strictly for lab fees, you
Mhm.
know. My understanding, and I was part of the development of that legislation, Tommy John, you were the only one that was here on the board at the time, with Janice Shearer, that was kind of what was put together because of this adopt-upon thing, and it wasn't just for lab fees. It was $5,000 to do a citizen science project.
This program was connected with another program that we heard from earlier this year.
Yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
Bless you.
the name that kind of got on there. All right.
With your partnership with Farmingdale, are you working with the department, the faculty department, to garner students? Like, what's the process looking like to bring students into the program? 'Cause as a professor myself, I, have worked with department heads to craft various programs. So what is the sort of the funneling agent here?
Gotcha. So there's really sort of 3 avenues we can get students. 4, but one of them isn't really sustainable. The most sustainable is the one that we're currently using, which is a summer research program, where basically Bob and I sign up as research mentors, and students are given to us in denominations of 1 to 4. This semester we had 2. Last semester we had 3.
And that's being selected by you or the faculty?
It's a external research program as part of the
Okay.
college, so I'm not in charge of it.
Okay.
Rather, what happens is we petition to get students, and then that program has its members
And they
that partner us with students based on our project and the interests.
Did those
Great.
students
Good to know.
receive credit for the work that they
Not
do?
credit and money. It's a summer research. It's a summer research stipend.
Oh,
Okay.
So rather than a 4 credit opportunity, it's a paid internship basically.
Great on the resume,
Exactly.
and they learn and they're in the field. Okay.
And then if that doesn't work, or if we need students in other times of the year, because this is strictly from basically
summer.
June 1st to August
Yeah.
31st. My department has internship opportunities that are part of the major requirement, so we
Okay.
could pull students in during the semester for a 4 credit internship.
Got it.
Also,
That's great.
we have students in the biology department, because this is a biology-focused program, that are part of the biology club that have expressed interest, just as a sort of informal process, where they would work with us, not really for credit, not really for money, but just
Volunteer.
to have that on the resume.
so you would alert the town if there were rising levels of nitrogen or phosphorus that you're finding in your sampling?
I would certainly, if you're providing the funding for that analysis, that data belongs to you. And it's gonna, my plan would be to work, and I've already had a conversation with Ross, that it would become part of your GIS system, so it would be there for you guys to access. In terms of an interpretation, well, we can make graphs and show you that, levels are going up. And we would like to do that every time we collect samples. I mean, when I drop a sample off, I can't wait till the data comes back, so I can add a new point on my graph to see what's going on.
And ideally, we would hope that we don't find much. I mean, we're not looking for problems. We're looking to create the atmosphere and the conditions of the pond, so in the future, that data could be used and compared if something were to happen, or future research needs to happen on the pond.
And also,
I mean-
it's the basis for any
Okay.
remedial design. I mean, you can't just throw a floating island out into the pond and hope for the best. I come from an engineering community, and you've got to have data to design your treatment system.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're not even saying that we're looking for a problem, but what happens if a problem arises? Who's responding? What are we supposed to do if they say, okay, there is a harmful algal bloom forming? What's the next step then? I know it hasn't happened yet, but what would?
You would
It
notify.
goes
You'll have to
trustees
ask Chris
and
Gold
James.
for that.
Yeah, you have to notify the people.
Yeah, you just, it's
Stay out of the
being
way.
protective.
Yeah, and how do those get treated?
What's that?
An algal bloom.
Like I said, you see
That
what they're
would be-
doing at Lake Agawam, trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, there are some, it's preventative. Upstate New York, a lot of times what they use is alum. They reduce the available phosphorus in these ponds and these lakes so that the algae can't grow. So that's a preventative thing, but you wouldn't know that.
That's what they're trying to do in
Trying to
Mill Pond
anticipate.
now. With all,
Oh,
with all the
Looking.
carp, it's a big problem. You ever have like layers of dead leaves, stuff. So when the fish go in, dig it up, it lets the
Puts it
phosphorus
back
out.
into.
Yeah.
and so what are we doing to treat it? What'd
That's a
you
good
say?
question.
No, I thought you
Well-
just said we're doing it.
We tried,
One of the proposals is to use this substance alum
yeah.
to
Right.
clarify the water, but that's a whole different conversation because it's infested with carp. They, like Bill said, they
Dig it up.
they kind of slough along the bottom and stir the muck up, turbidity, right? And
Yeah.
it's a problem there.
And the carp is an invasion fish, so they've been trying to catch that. The grants to catch the small ones,
Yeah, so there are
the
two
bigger ones.
sort of philosophies in industry and in government is that we'll deal with the problem when we have one, or we'll try to figure out what the problem, anticipate the problem with data so we can prevent the problem from happening. Everybody has their different opinions and approaches about that.
Well, we
I'm one that would like to know ahead of time.
That's
We-
the
we-
same problem in Agawam Lake. They have the same problem in that, the phosphorus in Agawam Lake.
And the algae harvester is gonna.
Help with that.
So we do
And-
need
and-
to discuss this. So,
Right.
and this also, I believe, is a program that ideally should be with the trustees, but we're looking to get the funding for this. And I mentioned from the outset, these ponds are the jurisdiction of the trustees. I believe in citizen science. I believe in baseline data. The Peconic Estuary Program has a robust citizen science program of counting alewives, and I think that something like this, or this beginning, and I do see this as a beginning, is something that would serve the town well into the future.
Is this a beginning, or have you been?
He's been doing it, but
You've worked with the town previously, right? Or no?
With respect to what?
This work.
Yes.
And
I
funding?
get, in a sense, I mean, I've been communicating with
The trustees.
the trustees.
For years.
I contacted every one of you before you
Yeah.
took
Did you
your
get
jobs.
funding before? Did you receive funding
From
from
the
the
town?
town?
No.
Oh, not yet.
No, and
Right.
again,
I'm just trying to get a knowledge of the history of. That's all.
Yeah.
oh yeah, Scott has known about this ever since the beginning,
Okay.
and all the trustees at that time.
and the testing for the harmful algal blooms you have been doing, it would be this nutrient research. It would be
The
the
additional
expansion of the program,
analysis
and that's why I
that's
called
needed.
it a start to establish that basis.
Got it. Got it.
And I'm new to the program too in the last couple months, so I mean there's a lot more I think of us starting to come in and be more involved in it.
Mhm.
So it's giving Bob some more ability to
Support.
do the things that he's been wanting to do.
Uh-huh. And Sharon?
So, I was a grant writer for Suffolk County Soil and Water Conservation District for 20 years. And it's all environmental grants. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is going out on these testing days is that I've been able to identify certain places where runoff is getting into the ponds. So I have an appointment with Mr. Sabon after to discuss how he could help with the grant process to get these runoff issues corrected.
You might want to try the new deputy supervisor.
Oh, I just was told by Paula,
Yeah.
at the beginning of the year.
Because Frank's retiring.
Oh, okay. So who's the new person?
John Ortiz.
John Ortiz, but Frank is actually here today because John had to be out, so.
Okay.
As a grant writer, you know the importance of getting smaller grants to go after larger grants, right? And that part of the grant application. We receive support from the town of Southampton, or and citizens, and we have X amount of donations.
I'm not asking him for a grant. I'm
No.
asking.
As a grant writer
Mhm.
for the future of this program, if you decide to go after grants from the state or the county,
And all this data will help.
help from the town would help
Yes.
that effort.
Help get the
I
grants.
will say one thing. We did, on the topic of the IOA, this actually came from a grant that we submitted for a citizen science initiative through Farmingdale State College. So we have gotten a little bit of sort of small bill funding.
Oh, that's good.
And there's also some money from the RAN program we get, bits and pieces, but it's not enough to tackle $7,000 worth of. Again, the nutrient sampling is really the big ticket here.
Is this the first year you're trying to do the nutrient sampling?
No, we've been doing it for several years. We've got eight sets of samples, and that's how I was able to show you that graph of nitrates.
Oh, right, right.
Phosphorus, we only have 3 data points, so
Mhm.
3 points are not a trend. And I just, I'm not complaining, just making a statement that I have reached out to the CPF, and I've spoken with Fred Thiel about this, and basically the mindset is that, well, the legislation was written to preclude a program like this from getting grant money from the CPF. Because it's a monitoring program, and maybe that's the wrong word to use, but the only time that money is available would be if you have a problem. Now we have money to fix it. But to figure out if you have a problem, you're gonna have to find your own money. And I've spoken with Fred about it, and he agreed, and he thought the same thing, that the way that was written, should have been considering something like this. And
Currently,
maybe
it
that
has to
will
be.
change.
Currently, it has to be tied to a project of some sort. So-
Well, then again, you have to define what is a project. And What I
Mitigation,
hear,
yeah.
a remediation project, not an investigation.
You did propose new legislation, which is
Mhm.
pending, right? And I don't know if it includes this language, but I'll take a look at it again.
And maybe not in my lifetime.
No, I
So I'm
mean,
not gonna hold my
he
breath.
did
Yeah, right.
some
But-
significant changes to the
Yeah.
CPF law that's pending right now, yeah. It was-
And I understand, you
Fred
don't want,
authored.
anybody just going out and collecting a water sample and wanting to get, money for it. I mean, we're professionals, bringing our professional expertise to this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you
much
for coming.
Thank you.
appreciated.
Thank you for
Sharon,
coming in
did
and
you wanna
presenting.
say one
Yeah,
other
I just
thing?
want to say, it's not just the CPF fund that doesn't fund testing. It's
Yeah.
a lot of DEC grants and other environmental
They
grants.
only want to give money if there's an actual problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
So we need to be
Okay.
more proactive, is what you're saying.
That's what we're trying to.
It's all philosophy, I guess, of life. All right,
Well, thank
thanks
you
so
all
much.
for
all.
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Thank
Very
you.
Thank you.
Informative. Appreciate
Any
that.
questions, you know where to get me. You
Yes.
know where I
Yes,
live.
we do.
Thank
On the
you.
pond.
Thanks, John, for stopping in.
Yeah.
You can share, right? Just in
Let me have
case
that.
you need.
Marie, did you happen to see my email? I wanted to set up a meeting with you at some point. I just sent it last
I think,
night, so
oh,
if you
no,
didn't see it,
yeah.
no worries. Just a heads up.
Yeah, Jackie will definitely
I'm
set
sure.
that up. Did you? Knew you looked familiar. Is she okay?
Yeah, she's doing good.
Elizabeth came home last week for a week and
How's she doing?
she's doing well too. But yeah, I heard Jamie got married.
Thanks so much for all your
Yeah,
time.
she did.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
See you
Please
again.
tell her I said hello.
All right.
You know, when Elizabeth went over to Belgium for an exchange program her junior year, and Jamie and one of the other boys that were friends with her came over to visit me because they thought I would be
Yeah, I
lonely,
remember.
and I was. So it was so nice of them to do that.
Good seeing you.
You too.
Come on up.
Okay, so our next topic let's see, is the capital improvement tax exemption for accessory dwelling units. Kara Bach, the director of our community housing services, and Lisa Gorey, our tax assessor. I
Morning.
say
Morning.
Gorey, but I noticed last night they were saying Gorey. Which is it? It's Gorey?
It's Gorey.
Sorry, I've been
Gorey,
saying
it's
Gorey
French.
the whole time.
That's okay, everyone
Oh,
says.
that's
I even say glory, it's
elegant.
Well, nice to see the both of you.
Thank you very much for
Yeah,
having
it's
us. I
funny,
hope
so I don't
everyone's
know what just happened.
summer is going well so far.
We have a quorum.
Where'd they go?
We have a quorum. I don't know.
Yeah, let's
Hello.
continue.
So I wanted to just inform everyone about a new, recently enacted property tax exemption for accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. Just for the public, I'll just kind of explain what an ADU is. An accessory dwelling unit, or ADU, they are secondary housing units located on the same property as a primary residence. These units can be attached, detached, or part of the main residence, and include independent living facilities such as a kitchen, bathroom, sleeping area. ADUs serve various purposes, including providing affordable housing, accommodating multi-generational families, housing for the disabled, and generating rental income for homeowners. So the town has two programs to finance the construction of ADUs. One is the Plus One ADU program. That's a New York State grant program that awards, it's an award to income qualified homeowners up to $125,000 to construct an ADU on their property. And then due to the tremendous response we had to this program, the town board, you all, agreed to fund ADUs under the new Community Housing Fund, the CHF fund. And that program, the second program is CHF ADU. That program is a no-interest construction loan of up to $125,000 to local homeowners who want to add an accessory apartment to their home to house a member of the town's workforce. This program has no income limitation on a homeowner. In both programs, the property owner must own the property and reside at the property as their primary residence. The tenant income must be at 130% of the area median income or less. Rent charged may not exceed the affordability guidelines set by the town. And in the case of the CHF ADU program, at least one tenant must work full-time within a business located within the town. So when people call my office and we explain these programs to them, they say, these are great programs, but will my real estate property taxes go up upon the construction of this ADU? And New York State has recently answered that question by allowing towns to create an exemption.
Because, and sorry to interrupt, but because otherwise it would impact their taxes.
That's correct, yep. The improvement of that ADU most likely would impact their taxes.
And that would depend on square footage, bathrooms. It's just like any other addition.
Right.
That was how it's not necessarily the ADU per se, but it's an addition to the
of
dwelling,
living
and it
area.
would. Okay. So the New York State program, where is that?
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you a little bit of background on it. Yep. So
Okay.
New York State real property tax law, Article 4, provides exemptions for certain capital improvements to residential properties. Among these is the recent exemption for the creation of accessory dwelling units. This exemption was signed into law by the governor in April of 2024, and it aims to incentivize property owners to expand housing options. So let me give you a little bit of an overview of the tax exemption. Under Article 4 of the Real Property Tax Law, specific exemptions are granted for the creation of new ADUs. Those are ADUs which are created after the effective date of a local law authorizing the tax exemption. I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. The exemption provides tax relief to property owners, reducing the financial burdens associated with the capital improvement of an ADU. So key points of the exemption include eligible criteria to qualify for the exemption. The property must be a residential building where a new ADU is constructed. The exemption applies to the increase in the assessed value resulting from the capital improvement of the ADU. The duration of the exemption is a set period of 10 years. During this 10-year period, the added property value derived from the ADU is partially or fully exempt from property taxes, providing savings to the property owner. It's a phase-out schedule, and it's as follows. Years 1 to 5, the property owner will be 100% exempt from the increase in assessed value attributable to the ADU. Year 6 through 8, the property owner will receive a 75% exemption from the increase in assessed value attributable to the ADU. Year 9, 65% exemption. Year 10, 55% exemption. Year 11, it drops off and there's no exemption.
And Kara, this is also important to note, especially for our +1 program, because that is specifically aiding homeowners that have income limits,
Correct.
In which taxes would actually impact them negatively.
That's correct.
A higher tax.
Yeah, so the +1 ADU program has an income limitation for property owners at 100% of the area median income. And so if they are already at an income level like that, certainly taxes, increase in the taxes.
Can you give an example of that?
Of what 100% area median income is?
Because people, when you talk about 100%, they don't understand exactly what that is.
Sure, absolutely. So right now that has recently been increased. So for a family of one person, 100% of the median area income is $109,000. For a family of two, it's $124,950. For a family of three, $140,000. Family of four, it's $156,000.
Right. So this potential shift in the state law that allows municipalities to do this could actually help lower income individuals who want to construct an ADU to provide affordable housing to actually do that and have it not too burdensome on their taxes.
And it would have to stay at 100% AMI?
The property owner?
Our code allows landlords to charge up to 130% of 130% of AMI.
Yep.
Right.
So
Remember
there's
that
a difference
calculation?
between the property owner. The property owner's income level has to be at 100% of the area median income. The tenant, however, under our town code, our rental code, has to be at 130%
And
AMI or less.
that's my question. Does the state care about that?
No, the
Okay.
state does not care. Under that +1 program, the state does not have an income limitation on the tenant. It
Right.
also does not have an income, a rental limitation on the amount of rent charged. However, under our town code, in order to be able to get a rental permit for an accessory apartment, the rent must be deemed affordable under the town's guidelines, and the tenant must be at or under 130% of the AMI.
Could you give an example of that too?
Sure, absolutely.
Because Mike wants an example.
The rent.
Are you saying that under the state's program, the owner of the property can charge any rent that they want?
That's correct, yes.
But
But our town code requires that the rent be affordable.
Only for our project or
For-
for the state?
For within the town, if you have an accessory dwelling unit, our town code requires that accessory dwelling unit to be occupied by a tenant who income qualifies at under 130%, and that the rent be charged at affordable rate, which was set by all you, the town board.
So for one person, going back to your question, so for one person at 130% AMI, what could be charged for a
Sure.
studio or one bedroom for one person?
Yep, so let me just talk a little bit about what the income levels are. At 130%, the income level for one person is $142,150. For two people, it's $162,450.
For the property owner?
That's for the tenant.
Which is illustrated in the code.
That's correct. Yep,
For both of the programs, the state program and the town program?
that's correct. So if you have an accessory apartment in the town of Southampton, your tenant must income qualify at 130% of the area median income or less. So those are the numbers I just read to you. 142 for one person, 162 for two peoples, or 182
So
for
if that
three.
one person makes $66,000 because he works somewhere local in the town, he can qualify.
He absolutely would qualify.
Yes.
That's correct. Yep.
That's
Yeah.
at about 60%.
Yeah, that throws
That-
a lot of
that's
people
correct.
off. They
Yep.
think they have to make 142,000.
Yep. No, it's less than that.
Yeah.
So if you're less than that, you're okay. Now, just to answer Tommy John's question regarding what are the rents that can be charged, under the town code, the maximum number of bedrooms that you can have for an ADU is 2. So we're only gonna look at the 1 and 2 bedroom rents. 1 bedroom, the maximum rent that can be charged is $2,500 a month. For a 2 bedroom, it's $2,813 a month.
And that is with utilities or without utilities?
That is without utilities, so utilities can be charged on
And
top of
those
that.
numbers are lower than the 130 AMI that can be charged. That's more like at 100% or 110. Okay.
Yeah.
$2,500
I like it.
a month for a 1 bedroom? That
Mhm.
doesn't sound that inexpensive.
So the
Well below
market
market.
rate is much more than
Yeah.
that right now. So these are affordable rents when you're considering what the market rate is.
This is a control factor for, the higher
Right.
costs that.
And we also want to incentivize landlords to actually offer these. So there's that balance that we
Yeah.
have been working on. Yeah.
If they save money on the taxes, then they're more often gonna do that.
That's correct.
Because
'cause-
they're probably already charging $2,500 for a apartment already, so if they can save a few $1,000s on the taxes, that actually increases the rent. They get.
that goes into their pocket. That's
Right.
correct. Yep.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, some of the benefits of ADUs are, that a homeowner will be more likely to create and invest in an ADU on their property when they know they can receive this tax relief. This can lead to improved property values. It will support multi-generational living and housing for disabled persons. ADUs offer a flexible living arrangement for extended families and the disabled, allowing multiple generations to live on the same property while maintaining privacy and independence. The creation of ADUs can provide homeowners with additional rental income, contributing to their financial stability and offsetting the costs of property maintenance. Allows people to stay within this township. We hear that all the time in my office. People call, especially people who are now entering their retirement, that they can no longer afford to live here.
Forgive me if you answered this already. This exemption is for those who qualify for the ADU at the state grant program, as well as the the CHF program that we have here at the town level.
Yes,
So it's
and
both.
even if they don't use one of these programs, if they construct an ADU, they would be eligible for this tax exemption.
And who could build accessory dwelling units in the town? Would you go over the property sizes and, we
Sure.
kind of have a 2-tier system.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, the property size required for an ADU is 30,000 square feet, unless, that's 3/4 of an acre, unless you live in an area where the density measures less than 500 people per square mile. Then you can go down to 20,000 square foot property size or half an acre. An accessory apartment must be at least 400 square feet. It can have a maximum size of 1,000 square feet, and it cannot be more than 2 bedrooms.
So what areas of the town are people required to have a lot of 30,000 square feet, which is about 3/4 of an acre?
So on our GIS, we do go over those areas where there are areas where there are more than 500 people per square mile. Just off the top of my head, I know there are areas like Hampton Bays. So you do need 3/4 of an acre to have an accessory dwelling unit in Hampton Bays right now.
I have a
And other
question.
areas of the town, it's a little less than half of an acre to have an accessory dwelling.
Yeah, you would need the 20,000 square feet if you're in that
Watermill,
area.
Remsenburg's beyond, you can, okay.
Yeah, if you're in that area where there are less than 500 people per square mile. Yep.
Right.
On the 2 bedrooms, because people would want to know this, is it a couple with a child, or could be 2 single people, each have a bedroom? How is that?
Yeah, so the building code does cover how many people can occupy a bedroom. So, two people can occupy a single bedroom. And so if you're building a 1-bedroom apartment, 2 people can occupy that.
But if it's a 2-bedroom, is it 2 couples, or could be 1 couple with a child, or 2 single persons?
So our town code regulates how many people, unrelated people can live together.
Yeah.
So you can have a maximum of 5 unrelated people that live together in a dwelling. So it would then depend on, how many
what the landlord would want.
Well, also, and also, how it falls under the building code. So, how many people can occupy a
So
certain
you could have
square
up to 4
footage.
people for the 2 bedrooms.
Yes.
That restriction on how many people can live that's unrelated is always subject to challenge too, right? If they're living as a family unit, then that's another whole
So
thing
I
we get
have,
into in fair housing.
I just have a question from a logistical standpoint. When they put that, they still have to, obviously, we still have to do the assessment on the new ADU. Will they see that as a credit on their tax bill until such time as it, you know what I mean? So they're knowing what it's going to be when the clock runs out.
So what happens with the assessment? Their assessment, of course, will increase based on the amount of, excuse me, that's attributed to the apartment or the accessory unit. However, the exemption is limited to $200,000 in value.
So even if they put on a $500,000 unit, they're only getting
$200,000 limit. And we also have to, excuse me, we also have to factor in the equalization rate that gets applied to it. And of course, the construction has to exceed the minimum amount is $3,000. And then I just want to also mention that anyone that has an income-based exemption who may want to do this, that income will also have to be included when they apply for their exemptions or renew their exemptions. They also have to disclose that.
That's a
that
good point.
income.
Yeah. That's good. That could knock them out for that. That grade
Right,
if
they
go over.
just want to make sure, they consider whatever exemptions they
Sure.
currently have so that this does not exceed the limit for that
Right.
exemption.
And that includes the school tax. They get a break on.
Well,
Just the property tax.
the schools would have to opt into this. So if the town adopts it, then the schools, they have the option. They would also have to pass a resolution
Okay.
as well. So it may not apply to their school taxes if the school
Because that could
does
really
not.
hurt the schools.
Right.
If
yeah.
they opt in, it could.
Yeah, so it would require them to actually take an action.
So really, we're only
Opt-in.
doing this on
Town portion.
20% of their tax bill.
Right,
Yeah.
so I did an example because there was a property in Hampton Bays last year that actually did an accessory apartment, and their previous assessment was $604,000. They did the unit, it added an additional $37,000 to their assessment, so their savings actually came out to about $51. So that would be in the first 5 years, of course, depending on what the tax rate is, their savings would be about $50 for that first 5 years, and then it would decrease as Karen
Annually
mentioned.
or total? 51 a year.
$51 a year, yeah.
But there's no discount involved with the income they're receiving from the unit, right?
Right.
That's just
Do we
going to
know
be
what-
added to their income.
What their savings would have been if the school
So-
district had opted in?
No, I didn't do the school districts, but for the town, if, let's say they went to the maximum 200,000, then their savings would be about $270.
A year.
They went to the maximum exempt amount.
And then after 5 years, that
It
decreases.
decreases by the 25%.
I mean, I honestly, I don't see the school districts wanting to opt into this
I don't
because
think it benefits.
no.
No, it would hurt them in the long run.
I support it on our end, but
Right. Be a nice thing for them to do, but they won't.
So would we need to pass a home rule or
So-
a memorializing resolution?
Yeah, so we would have to have a public hearing, there would have to be, a new local law that
Local
was
law.
adopted by the town board.
Reflective of the state.
That's correct, yep.
and then logistically for you, I know when we discussed exemptions in the past, it's easier, of course, if they're across the board.
Yeah.
Does this add a ton of extra work to your department?
I don't think so, because right now we do offer a capital improvement exemption, not specifically for ADUs, and we probably
we don't even have a handful of them, so I
What's
don't think
that?
we're gonna have an influx. Excuse me?
What's the capital improvement exemption?
It's for any, like, let's say you added on a ramp, to the dwelling for access for like a handicapped person or something like that, that's considered in the capital improvement. So anything like that. So we don't get a lot of those applications in a given year.
And
So-
ADUs would fit into that program. It is a
It-
capital
80
improvement.
Yes,
Right,
this exemption is considered a capital improvement, it's just a different section of real property tax law, specific to ADUs.
But so capital improvements are not exempt, just certain ones that are
Correct,
regarding maybe.
Public benefit of some kind.
Yes.
You have some for commercial too, right? Was it 45, is it, where you can do similar to this if you it was in the school districts that would also have to opt in on improvements for commercial properties?
Actually, school districts have to opt out of that.
Oh, is it
Yeah,
really? Was
have
that
to
true?
opt out.
Oh. And that's an exemption thing, was it?
For the
For
commercial.
10% of the year, it goes down,
Yeah.
pro rata.
Yeah, for 10 years.
State likes their 10-year timelines.
Yeah.
Softens it a little.
No, I mean, it's on the other end too. Like I remember when we had our first mortgage, it was a Sony May loan. It was after 10 years you could sell the property at full value and
Right.
keep the money, but before that you got penalized.
Right.
This is similar to improvements in our historic district in Bridgehampton. You can make improvements and then, you can apply not to have your taxes increase and it amortizes out after 10 years. It sounds like companion or a similar program. What's a section in real property tax? You said Article 4. What-
Yes. Yep.
You have the
It's,
section.
real property 421-P.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But
I like it.
this applies
It's good.
even if it's somebody's, like, if you're not renting it out, you're just letting a family member live there, right? There's no way for us to,
It-
carve that up.
Right, so it applies to the ADU itself, the accessory dwelling unit. Yeah.
Well, thank you for this. I mean, this,
Thank
At
you
fir-
for
at-
having us.
at first read, it was complex with the deduction,
Right.
going.
And then the schedule, the step down schedule was a
But
little
you provided a
complicated,
nice
yeah.
overview.
Yeah, thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you guys again.
You too. Well, that brings us to our project update. John, do you have anything you wanted to report?
Hope you're going to let us all know about your new sidewalk project.
Bill, did you want to take this one?
Doing a work
I
session
want
on
you
that,
to
right?
Huh?
explain it. I'm all excited for you.
I'm sorry, what?
We're doing a whole work session on that.
Yeah, we are. Thank you. Yes, I absolutely am.
I'm not putting you on the spot.
I appreciate it. Bill, no, not on the spot at all. Actually, I was going to open up with Wildwood Lake. We all know that there have been challenges up there, and I want to thank Kristen Doulos and the Parks Department. There is an attendant up there on the weekends as well, and Chief Kiernan is also increasing the police presence in and around Wildwood Lake and Riverside in general.
That's excellent.
That is, the efficacy there is it's working. And just so the public knows, there have been a number of folks who have from outside of Southampton town who have really congregated down onto the lake, and it's a quality of life issue for the residents. So we continue to work there as well. And as was previously alluded to, Southampton Town received a grant, a transportation alternatives program grant for a project that we have been working on for a number of years. Yes, previous board and the board before that one as well had been working on this. And the grant is for $2,948,000 for pedestrian alternatives, enhancements, and traffic calming measures in the hamlet of Noyak. This is a good thing. So we're going to be working with the community there to develop that and to get their input as well. So that process is going to begin over the next couple of months.
Thank you for your hard work on that.
And
Yes, thank you. It's very exciting.
I know that's been a long time coming.
yes, it is. And the people of Noyak have been asking for improvements along Noyak Road. I know, Michael, you know, they want the road paved, and, you know, Charlie has some ideas about, you know, phasing the paving in there, so we should coordinate with the highway superintendent with this project and paving of the road as
Great.
well.
Yes, we already talked about it with them. Not so much, just the sidewalks going in by the postcard station,
Oh, yeah,
and we're working on making
that looks nice.
it keep on going up around the corner.
Hmm.
That's about it.
And those sidewalks were part of the highway department budget,
Yes.
just because we put that in last year, and that's something that Councilman Martell was working on for the past couple of years.
Yeah,
Along Shinnecock Road, a lot of people come down from those neighborhoods. So we're seeing a similar thing here in Noyak. In order to get to the park, people want to walk to the park. And so on those roads, it's a heavily trafficked road. And so we're providing pedestrian access ways.
Yeah.
Noyak Road is pretty challenging.
Yes,
Yeah.
very dangerous.
I look forward to discussing
Mm-hmm.
more on that.
Absolutely.
Also, we did get some more speed lights signs put up.
Speed monitors.
Speed monitors.
Yes, those digital speed signs.
And more to come.
He's putting one up on Woodhull, which they really wanted.
Put one up.
there.
Put one up in Sparta.
We put one up on Wakeman Road and Palo Alto. We got one on Noyak. I think we're coordinating to get one on a couple of other streets as well. We only have 5 that we procured recently, but I would like to discuss with this board on you know, the type of speed monitors we're getting. I think the ones that we have are good, but we do need to find some of the ones that, for instance, Sag Harbor uses on Main Street from Mashashamuet Park heading into the village. It's you know, it's pretty.
It gathers data to those.
Gathers data, but it specifically flashes very bright. I've mentioned this numerous times. Has a very bright strobe rather than just a continuous.
And you missed the disco area.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's actually it's like a blue and red one, and then there's also ones that read like "Thank you for driving safely, slow down," something that is more engaging.
Well, Tom said there were different settings, so let's see what he determines, because he seemed to think these were, you know, newer models that would have that.
Yeah.
And they certainly do collect the data.
Oh, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. I think Tom is great. We thank him for helping us with that procurement.
The data is very important. It tells you how
Yeah.
fast people are going.
Yeah, we're very grateful, and I can say that I'm
How
sure
slow.
the people of Noyak will be happy that there's another speed monitor there,
And yeah, and we'll make sure to get it in the budget to.
and Hampton
Get
Bays
some
as
more.
well, and
Mhm.
Hampton Bays. So. Yes. Can I make just a couple of other announcements?
Go
Or-
ahead.
Yes,
so-
of course.
So just I guess the Greek festival starting today at 4:00, 4:30. Start heading down there from July 11th to the 14th. It's going to be a great time. Lots of folks from the community, Father Constantine Lazarakis and Father Alex. They just do such a great job bringing the community together, and I hope you all will try to make some time. They're great food, by the way.
Mhm.
Fantastic food. I recommend the taropita, which is the cheese pie, and the gyro, of course. Also, I wanted to mention we're planning to have our next meeting of the Traffic Mitigation and Safety Task Force on July 31st. I've heard comments from some of the members of our task force that they'd like to have a closed session in the beginning of the meeting to discuss what we've been doing. And there's a couple of ideas that some of the members of the task force would like to speak about before we bring it to the public. So we're going to be having a executive session in the beginning of our next meeting, and then following it up with a presentation from our co-chair Tom Neely, and then a couple of updates from the members and public comment as well. So it's going to be a little bit of a different setup for the next meeting. We're working on the specifics of that, but I'm also just trying to accommodate some of the members of the task force. And this next meeting will be at 2, so it has to take place during the day, and that's per recommendation of our public safety department. We like to have security at our meetings, and in order to do that, we want to make sure that we're not going over budget with respect to overtime for some of our staff there. So we'll have that meeting at 2. It'll be from 2 to 4. Again, this is tentative. All of that will come out officially, hopefully within the next week. I also, did you have something you want to say?
Oh, no, I just wasn't sure about, I just wanted Jim to mention if there's anything about how we would set that up with an executive session for the task force. Can you,
There's no.
It's like a
Or-
closed
Yeah,
session.
it's
It's a closed
committee,
meeting. Committee meeting.
right,
Closed meeting.
right. I mean, it's not it's just committee, it's not.
There's no
the
majority.
public office law really applies to this or not.
It's not an official meeting like this, so it
Right.
wouldn't be an
It's not a
executive session.
decision-making body.
Right, right, I don't.
so we would just have it
A
start,
closed.
it would not be open to the public for the first hour.
Right. We're
Right.
going to have a separate meeting off, just with the members, just to discuss where we are. A couple of members also had some comments, some ideas they wanted to kind of throw out to the other members to just discuss, and then we will then move to our open session.
You can have a closed committee meeting.
I can look into it. I don't know that if public office applies to this.
Open meeting or not?
Yeah, I don't open meetings. Yeah, I don't think so. But
Okay, because we don't have a quorum of,
The
you know,
town board.
the
right,
town board.
right.
Right.
If it was a quorum of the town board, that would be different. But I think
Yeah.
the opens meeting law.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just-
Yeah, if we have to flesh through that, we're more than happy to flesh through that more specifically. But I also want to mention too, this is a really important thing, and thanks to Jamie Bowden, Sean Cambridge, and Juan Becerra, we were able to translate our Disability Task Force resource guide now into Spanish. So there's both this the Task Force Disability Resource Guide, both in English and Spanish. So very happy to see that, and you can access that on our town website. So I thank them for their coordinated efforts on that.
And
I just want to thank Tom Houghton. He, after our meeting the other day, immediately got to work on the parking issue at the senior center, and he's working through some things that we've discussed, and we're hoping to have a more long-term solution for that very shortly. He actually came up with some really great ideas.
oh,
Just want
that's
to make
good.
sure they're all within our contracts, and so that was good. So that I'm looking forward to getting something done there.
We should coordinate. Last night there was a Hampton Bays Alliance meeting, and it came up, and Janice Shear was there, and she said that she would reach out to the owner of the shopping center that we have a contract with for cross-access parking. So maybe she instead of just doing something on her own and Tom doing something, maybe
should
they
work
could
together.
Coordinate.
With the owner of the shopping center itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wonders if it's being used as it was supposed to be laid out.
Tom has. That's pretty much where Tom is at.
What
So
is- what is
I
being
think
used?
he's already spoken to Janice about
Okay,
it.
all right, good.
What is being used? What's the plan?
Well, it's a contractual thing, so I'd rather not.
Yeah. Okay. No, because I was very
Because-
involved with that
because-
acquisition.
But I'll let
Tom
you
and I
know
spoke
I know all
what
the
Tom came
details.
up with.
Yeah.
He was going to reach out to you too because it's a legal
Yeah,
question.
Yeah, I've met many times with that property owner as we purchased that property and worked out the agreements. I'm pretty familiar with all the details of that transaction. So.
That's good. I'm glad.
But he did on his own. He
Get right
immediately
on
pulled
it.
the contract and looked
Yeah.
at it, trying to see what we could do.
He reached out to
Um,
me, extra ideas, I gave him a few ideas.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody's working together
Yeah,
to
they
solve
work
the
together.
problem.
Yes, it's a big problem there.
I was working with Altazullo, and I've reached out to Bill on this. We have a surplus pump out boat that's sitting, and it's just basically we're not using it. It's not functional at the moment. We are going to surplus it and donate it to the village of Sag Harbor because they have a need and they're willing to fix it up and get it in the water. I figure the more effluent you get out of the water, no matter where, is the best thing to do.
They'll
So
operate it themselves.
they'll operate it themselves. It'll be no cost to us. We're just going to give it to them as is. They'll fix it
It
up
needs
and
a lot
get
of
it
work.
back in the water. Yeah, it
I
does
think
need a lot
I think
of
it has a
work,
crack tank.
but they're willing to work on it. And then I just have some actually parks updates because, you know, our Parks and Rec department is extremely busy. They're doing an amazing job. I was at Ponquag yesterday for an event. The town has free sunscreen dispensers at 13 of our parks, recreational facilities, and beaches where, at no cost to the public, obviously, they look like hand sanitizer dispensers, but it's SPF 30 sunblock. It's all natural sunblock they put in there.
Oh, that's great.
There's a company that maintains them, refills them. It was nice to hear that out of all the municipalities they deal with, because it's an island-wide thing. We are the municipality that has the most usage, the least amount of vandalism, and the easiest municipality to work with. So it's
Love
nice
that.
to hear.
That's great.
So we used to. I mean, former Councilwoman Christine Scler brought this to the town in 2019 in a partnership with Stony Brook Southampton. Our new partnership that funds the whole program is Union Derm, and like I said, a dermatologist from Union Derm was at Ponquag yesterday. We were talking with the lifeguards, and they were handing out free samples of sunscreen, and we did a ribbon cutting for the sunblock dispenser. So it's just a nice thing that's offered because, you know, how many times you get to the beach and the sunblock spray clogs, or, you know, you don't want to
Or
go
you forget
home
it.
or go, you know, so you just go up to the dispenser and there you have it.
That's great.
I also wanted to mention we did get a lot of positive feedback from the new comfort station at Hot Dog Beach. We got an email just the other day of someone saying it was immaculate and it blends right in, and it's a really nice addition to the beach. I know the residents are extremely happy about it. And then the other thing I just wanted to bring up is there have been a lot of, I don't know if you've gotten them on your phone, there's been a lot of rip current O-rings. And, you know, at the beach the other day they had, we don't hear about, we hear about when there's fatalities or there's a near drowning. These guards are out there saving people literally every day. They were on the beach and somebody got caught in a rip current, and they run a line out, and there's 3 lifeguards on the line to get the person. And I think people don't understand when, we've been asked by residents, well, just throw a lifeguard in the chair in September. There needs to be a minimum of 4 guards on the beach at all times because they can't run that line out to save somebody
Sure.
with
By
one
themselves.
guard.
And
So-
someone still has to be up on the counter.
Exactly.
We have on the
Someone
bench.
still has to be up
So
on
we
the chair.
have to, we really have to look out for them as well. So it's a safety concern, and it's not something that we don't do because we don't want to. We just don't have the staffing to make sure everybody's safe.
All right,
So.
it's dangerous sometimes for a lifeguard to act alone to get to somebody. Somebody's in a deep panic, and they come and they grab you around the neck. And I've seen a lot of different situations. So you have to have more than one guard.
Yeah, but I just want to say they're doing an amazing job. A lot of them are taking the time to. They're shuffling around, and most of our guards are west of the canal, but they are taking taking turns, taking the drive out east and sitting in the traffic. So
And plus, there's a lot of training too.
a lot.
Oh yeah, no.
Both
Yeah.
daughters were lifeguards.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
They do a
And
lot
they
of
just
training
did-
early in the season in a very cold
They
water
just
too.
did a
It's-
training with the Marine Patrol with their personal it's like the Sea-Doos,
oh,
Jet
skis.
Jet skis, yeah.
and transferring patients, while underway to the boat, to the jet ski, and so they just did a really intensive.
Yeah, it's good to
and
see
the,
that.
the Coast Guard was involved as well, so it was a very good training.
And now they're scanning more for predators in the
Mhm.
water. That's another aspect of
We
the
get our
job.
man of wars, we get all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah,
They have to.
Kristen and Daryl and the whole team are doing a great job.
They are.
Thank you for highlighting that. The
Serious
parade
job.
was fun last Saturday. Some of us were there, and Fred Thiel was the Grand Marshal, sitting up in the convertible, and he had his grandson with him. So
Wow.
that was fun. And let's see, this week I attended. There's a group that got started over at the Stony Brook Southampton campus to try to get a lot of people together to talk about ideas on how to revitalize the campus, and talking about the governor's allocation of money for workforce housing and what we need for that with infrastructure and sewer treatment and the train stop and roads, but also how to revitalize the college and get more programs there. So, you know, it's a good idea to get people talking at least. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah. It's a great resource.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Center of
Yeah,
town,
it's such
you know.
a waste right
Yeah.
now. We've got to make something of it. So if that's all, then I move to go into executive session to discuss confidential legal advice, personnel, and litigation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.